Well, I think the lesson from Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016 is none of the insiders should pick who the candidate is.
So I rail against the mainstream media quite a bit. But when they do something right, I have to also give them credit. So on CNN's State of the Union on this past Sunday, they had on Nina Turner and Khanna on the same panel. And the reason why this is a big deal is because these are two people who are actually progressive on the economic issues and understand what the Democratic Party needs to do in order to actually start winning seats back. So I'm going to show you 3 clips here. And the first one, they're talking about the recent Kamala Harris versus Bernie Sanders controversy.
Surrogates for 2 potential presidential heavyweights on the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders and Kamala Harris, are already sparring. Take a look at what Bernie Sanders supporter Nomi Konst said this week. She said the Democrats will not win unless they address income inequality, no matter how they dress up their next candidate. If that candidate is in bed with Wall Street, you may as well lay a tombstone out for the Democratic Party. Does Kamala Harris have a Bernie land problem?
Well, I haven't seen that the senator said she is running, so that's not for me to say. What I will say is that Nomiki is absolutely right, that the Democrats have to do a better job. We lost in 2016 because we did not speak to the heart of the people, did not address their concerns. The economy, income inequality, wealth inequality is real. Real income and wages have not increased since or kept up with inflation since the 1980s. So the pain that folks are feeling is real, and we cannot dress that up. We have got to get out there and talk to the people. Stop making up these slogans, a better deal. I mean, what does that mean? And even that slogan, even that policy that they're pushing has left out large swaths of the population, particularly people of color. So the Democrats have to stop playing games and get to the heart of it, and that's the truth of the matter.
So that was Nina Turner, the president of Our Revolution, the group that was started in the wake of Bernie Sanders. And it's a group that is pushing real progressive candidates and ones that are detached from big money and Wall Street and those sorts of powers that generally have been intertwined with the Democratic Party. Now, I love that they had her on because every time Nina Turner is on, she makes fantastic points. And Jake Tapper surprisingly started that segment with a quote from Nomiki Konst, who is another real progressive. So really, in this segment, there are 3 actual progressive voices being represented on cable news. So just props to CNN for actually now representing these voices that have been so loud online, but have been largely ignored in television. And Nomiki's quote was absolutely right. The Democrats can't keep running these candidates that are attached to these big money donors. And that was the main issue with Kamala Harris so far, is that she's been meeting with Hillary Clinton's big donors. And we've already gone down this path. So for the Democratic Party to show that they haven't really learned anything from Hillary Clinton's loss, and not just Hillary Clinton's loss, but the over 1,000 seats that the Democrats have lost over the past 8 years, for them not to realize that a large part of that is because of the attachment to big money is kind of disheartening. And Nina Turner is exactly right in the points that she made in that clip. The Democratic Party needs to be focused on pushing economic policy, focusing on income inequality, and not putting the focus on social issues. That doesn't mean that you should run candidates that are socially conservative, but what it does mean is that instead of the socially liberal issues being your focus for campaigning, the focus should be on the economic issues and exactly what policies you're pushing for. And also having a detachment from big money also helps for people to trust that you actually are progressive on those issues and that you're not just representing your big donors once you get into office. Now, next up is Congressman Khanna, who is a Democrat from California, and he's asked about this Kamala Harris versus Bernie Sanders controversy because he's someone who is a real true progressive. He's actually a Justice Democrat. He doesn't take any big money or PAC money at all. And he also represents California, where Kamala Harris is from. So let's see how he answers this question about who does he support between Bernie and Kamala Harris.
Congressman, you have said that Bernie Sanders should absolutely run again in 2020, but you're also a congressman from California. Kamala Harris is your senator. Where do you come down in this Bernie forces versus Kamala Harris forces fight?
Well, I think the lesson from Bernie Sanders' campaign in 2016 is none of the insiders should pick who the candidate is.
That's right.
And that what we ought to have is give people the chance to make their case, have a compelling economic vision, speak to how they're going to bring manufacturing jobs back. Kamala Harris is also an attractive candidate. I mean, she's had a progressive record on criminal justice. Senator Sanders, of course, has moved the party on Medicare for all and many issues. But let's have a diverse, open field where the establishment isn't picking the nominee.
No, I think that's just an absolutely fantastic answer. The establishment should not be picking the nominee. And that is the issue that many progressives were having with this Kamala Harris push. Because it's clear that there is a concerted effort by the Democratic establishment to push Kamala Harris at this moment. That's why all these stories are coming out about her. Because she's meeting with these Clinton donors. And these donors like what they're seeing. There's a reason why they're pushing her. Whatever conversations they're having behind the scenes, they like Kamala Harris and they want her to run in 2020. So right now they're attempting to try to plant the seeds for her so that by the time 2020 rolls around, everyone will know who she is and what she's about. But that has sort of backfired because voters are smart. We catch on to this. We notice when certain candidates are being pushed in the media. It's obvious. And the reason why they're focusing on Kamala Harris is because they all love her. She's popular with that establishment class. Now, whether she's actually progressive on the issues, she has been progressive on some of these issues, but she hasn't pushed it in terms of, she hasn't been a leading voice out there. And she's also a fairly young senator. Now, I'm not saying it's not bad to be a young senator, but she hasn't proved herself to progressives. She hasn't proved that the money won't affect her once she is in. And she's actually proved the opposite, which I've gone into in a couple different videos already. But that is why there is this mistrust of Kamala Harris before she's even really got into it. Is not because of her specifically, but because of how she's being pushed by the forces, the same forces that have pushed candidates like Hillary Clinton. Now, let me get to this third clip, and I kind of forget what it's about, but it's about Trump. So, in this last clip, Khanna makes some points about Trump that I think the Democratic Party needs to hear.
We shouldn't underestimate him. I mean, his appeal to communities was, everyone else has forgotten you, and I'm going to bring you back. I'm going to restore that dignity and pride. And I think the Democrats, we have to give an aspirational economic message to these communities to say you can have opportunity in the 21st century, that we haven't forgotten you, that we want to harness your talent and hard work. And we've got work to do as a party.
But not just say it, do it, Jake.
All right, one and all, thank you so much.
So once again, Khanna is exactly right. Trump didn't just win the election because he was a racist, misogynist, jerk-off asshole or whatever. It's because Trump played the part of being that anti-establishment candidate. Now, in reality, he's stuffed his cabinet with people from like Goldman Sachs, so we know Trump isn't actually the person that he pretended to be. But a lot of people didn't know that at the time. Hopefully, they're now starting to realize that once he is in office. But there's this debate about, does the Democratic Party realize this, or are they ignorant to it? Now, if they're ignorant to it, then we can educate them and change minds within the power structures of the Democratic Party and move them to actually begin to start supporting real progressive candidates who are detached from big money and who are actually anti-establishment. But if the Democratic Party already realizes this and they're actively pushing back against it, which is what I think, then progressives need to just really take over the party. Because if the Democratic Party doesn't want to move in the direction of detaching itself from big money, and they don't, it's clear they don't, then there's no other way to go. Progressives either start a new party, which takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, not even just to build the party itself, but to change minds and to get people willing to vote for a third party. That is the toughest part, because people already go into the voting booth with the assumption that there's no way a third party is going to win. I'm not going to waste my vote. I'm going to vote for one of the two parties. It happens every time, no matter how much people dislike candidates. That's why a lot of people just stay home. They don't, if people were really interested in pushing a third party candidate, they would go out and vote for the third party candidate. But they largely don't. They either vote for one of the two top parties or stay home. Now, that's not everybody, but that is a lot of people. And that is why Democrats continue to lose, because they're not representing those people who might not stay home if they actually gave them a reason to go out and vote. And I think the Democratic Party is more interested in keeping the status quo alive and continuing to take that big money. And it's not even just because they feel that they need the money to run candidates. It's largely because these are the circles they're in, the social circles. These are the people they talk to. There is this whole setup around elections, around the American political system, where there are people actively trying to make money off of pushing certain candidates. So that's a large part of the reason why there's this push now for Kamala Harris, is because there is money involved. There's incentive involved there. Whether it's the consultant class, whether it's people that want to, or whether it's groups that, PACs that want to begin to start raising money to push into commercials and that sort of thing. There's this whole structure, incentivized structure around the American political system. And that is the large reason why the Democratic Party is having a hard time detaching itself from that money, because it's so ingrained in the party. And the only real way to get around that is to push candidates who are actually real progressives. So look at groups like Brand New Congress and Justice Democrats and Our Revolution, and see who they're pushing. See what candidates they're putting up and support those candidates. And primary Democrats, primary moderate corporate Democrats out of the party. So you can take over the Democratic Party. Progressives can actually have a voice again within the Democratic Party. It's just a matter of voting for the right candidates and primarying out the ones right now that have power, that are keeping that power structure and that status quo alive within the Democratic Party. So to get back to the clips for a second, though, it's great that CNN had on Khanna and Nina Turner. And I hope this is a trend now. So Nina Turner has been on quite a few times. This may have been the first time I've seen Khanna on. I'm not sure if he's been on before. But this is when you start seeing this shift within the media, I think it's a precursor to what's going to happen politically. So the reason why Nina Turner and Khanna are on this panel together is because progressives have vocalized that they want to see these sorts of people on. That when Nina Turner gets on, CNN sees a reaction, whether it's on social media or wherever. People love seeing progressives on CNN. And the more we hear them, the more that people hear them, the more that people love them. And that there's a reaction to it. And the more we're going to start seeing progressives appear on not just CNN, but hopefully MSNBC. It's funny that MSNBC is labeled the liberal network when it's a corporate Democrat network. It's not a progressive network. You rarely see progressives on Morning Joe, on Rachel Maddow, even on Lawrence, who I feel is likely a progressive himself, but is chained down within this structure of Comcast and MSNBC. And whether he even realizes it or not, that affects how you cover issues, and that affects what issues you cover because of the company you keep within the organization. So when you're around people like Joy Reid, who some people think is a progressive, she's not, but some people think that. And when you're around those sorts of people, those are the conversations you have. Your mind gets twisted by the corporate Democratic message. And you don't think about the progressive message. You don't think about what the Democratic Party needs to actually do to win again. Because you're stuck in the old thinking of, Democrats have been too progressive on the issues. They need to be more conservative on social issues, and then they'll start winning. That isn't the case. They're not progressive economically whatsoever. And in order to win, they actually need to be progressive on the economics and not make social issues the face of the party. So, yeah. Anyways, to leave this video, CNN, have Ro Khanna and Nina Turner and more progressives like this on more often, because it's only going to help your viewership. There are a lot of progressives out there who may not be on the internet, and even if they are, they want to see these voices on television, and you're going to get more attention because of it.